Hi, today I am going to be talking about the lesson plan that we created on the Smart Notebook in regards to our classroom's favorite day. So, for the learning objectives, the students should be able to structure a story going in sequential order while being able to identify the beginning, middle, and end of the story. The children will also learn to use transition words correctly in order to tie their writing together. Students will also learn how to develop a storyline using adjectives to describe characters, settings, and themes throughout their story. For the teacher knowledge check, teachers should be able to know how to explain and tell a story in order proficiently as well. And being able to explain how to tell a story, students will be able to tell their favorite story from beginning to end. And the importance of this slide is that if we were to give this lesson plan to a random teacher, they would have to have prior background information and need to know how to identify transition words. And students also want to know the takeaway from this lesson and meeting the objectives correctly. Okay, so this was the lesson plan along with the structure and the intended age group. So the title of it was My Favorite Day. The subject was language literacy, and the grade level it was intended for was second grade, just because it is a little bit more advanced. The approximate time that we said we needed for this activity was 30 minutes because although kids have kind of a short attention span, we included like multiple activities for them to do for this lesson plan. And then the state standards criteria, writers use text structures to convey meaning to their work. All right, for the space and materials needed, we said that this activity will take place in their assigned seat amongst their classmates. This will be so they can help each other when completing the template. The supplies that we needed were the template, colored pencils, and then we are also going to have them draw like beginning, middle, and end in the template. So either crayons, markers, or colored pencils for that. A writing utensil, and then we're also going to have a children either provide them a book and then do this as a whole class activity with one book in mind, or we're going to do um, let the children pick out their own book from like the school library and do it with that and have them draw out the beginning, middle, and end template with their favorite book as well. For social and emotional aspects of this lesson, it will help students identify and reflect on their emotions from past experiences and will demonstrate um, creativity and imagination just because they're being able to present to us something that they've experienced from the past and a message that they convey, so and how they felt with it as well. And then the assessment plan for teachers is I will be able to identify and determine if each student has met the objectives by the worksheet that they complete individually, by seeing if they met the criteria and seeing if they can identify the beginning, middle, and end, and if it's accurate. Students will have the opportunity to think back to their favorite day and write about it in the template. But students need to include beginning, middle, and end, followed by a clear explanation of each. The assessment will also include details like characters in the story, along with the setting. If students can share this information with the class in order with detail as well, then they have successfully retained the information needed to move on and apply this to further assignments. So that's when I will know if they met the criteria that is needed for this activity.
All right, so for this lesson plan, we came up with a few different activities that we can do in order to help the students kind of grasp what we're looking for the final story. So just a couple little exercises. This first one is the use of transition words. So here I have a short little excerpt, and the student can drag and drop which word they believe goes in the blanks. So they can kind of see the way a story should be in like chronological order. So obviously in that first one, they would grab first and drag it over. And then next. And then after. And each time they drag it over there, the little green check mark comes up so they know if it's their correct word. And then this one, it's just like a card flip. So if you hit action and you click on it, so it'd be fishing. So the kids will be given the short story to read, and it's about a little boy who goes fishing with his dad. So this kind of shows them how to break down a story, like what were they doing? The action would be fishing. Who's the main character? Bob. And then where's the setting? Is Pine Lake. So then they can kind of look at their own day that they're talking about and say whether or not, this is like the action in my story. I'm who the main character is, or this is the main character, and here's the setting. So that's just a little glimpse into that. Okay, and see right here, this is another one to help them look at the chronological order of things. So the instructions: identify which part of the story belongs to the story points under the arrows. Drag either beginning, middle, or end to the correct line. So the first line underneath says describe the actions taking place and explain the plot. The second under the line would say wrap up the plot, conclude the story. And the third would be introduce the characters and identify the setting. So the beginning, you would drag to introduce the characters and identify the setting. And then the middle would go above the describe the actions taking place. And end would go over wrap up the plot and conclude the story. So again, this just kind of helps them give them a little outline for their own story. And then narrative story order. So there's 3 different shapes up in the right-hand corner that they can drag and drop next to each of the transition story words. So for the circle, it would go to each transition word. The triangle goes to a conclusion word or phrase, and then the star would go to an introductory phrase. So to start with, first, one sunny day, finally, last, each of those words has a different place in a story. So it's a way to teach them to say, okay, so you don't want to put a conclusion word in the middle of your story because that would kind of confuse your reader. And then this one, when writing a story, we need to use adjectives or describing words to help paint a picture of our story into our readers' minds. Identify and group together all the adjectives that you see. So originally, all the words would be on the left-hand side, kind of scattered around. And then on the right-hand side, they would grab and drop what words they believed were adjectives. So big, small, stinky, purple, sweet, and beautiful would be adjectives. Whereas and, because, although, run, and swim are not adjectives. So this is a look into the vocabulary that they can be using while describing things in their story. And then for these, this next slide, there is this nice little template we have out for them to kind of use. And there's numerous ones online if this one doesn't seem to fit what a teacher is looking for. This one's pretty standard. So it says describe the characters, describe the setting, and then the major events in the story. So this is just a little guide for the kids to write in like a little outline, which will help them put their final thoughts into one story. Here's one that helps them identify different parts of their story. So underline the parts of the story where the writer talks about the setting. So this is just a super short little excerpt. One hot and sunny day, Ava and her friends decided to go to the swimming pool. When they were at the pool, they ate a packed lunch, which had turkey sandwiches, apple slices, and a juice box. After they ate, they jumped into the water and swam until it was time to go home. So we need to underline where the writer talks about the setting, which would be when they decided to go to the swimming pool. When they were at the pool would be another one. So that's kind of helps them identify where their setting would be and how they can explain to their reader where their story is taking place.
For our pop quiz, I decided to have something that would help them identify the correct transition words for the correct spot of the story. So they would get a piece of paper and they would draw out this table, which would have the beginning, the middle, and the end. In the next slide, this is where I have some transition words listed out, just scattered, out of order, with the same table. They would take about a couple of minutes, like 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long the teacher thinks the students can complete the quiz. Towards the end, as it could be like a more interactive and fun way to end the quiz or almost end the day, have the students come up to the board and they could come and put their own answers. So this would have worked. So like they could like come and put their answers underneath the chart, and that way they can help one another, and you as the teacher will have the answers down, so the students can be more excited of, oh, like I got that one right or something. And you can also assess them, knowing where they were able to put the correct answers in the beginning, the middle, and the end. For the exit ticket, it would be something more different. It would be using the same transition words, but in a different scenario other than just having them in stories. So they would have this recipe of making a simple spaghetti. They would have their answers here. And in these answers, I decided to have, the transitions from the beginning, the middle, and the end. That way the students can know exactly what part of the story is whether it goes at the beginning, what you would do at the start of the recipe when you start cooking. And going back to the assessment, you would know that they're proficient if everything is placed correctly, and at the end, if the recipe sounds correct to them and to you as well.